Lately, I've been noticing that a lot of my stories start with the phrase 50 years ago, and this is one of those stories. As a young sales manager 50 years ago, I figured out a way to get salespeople out of their slumps. Slumping salesperson would come in. I'd say, here's what you do. I want you to go out for the next 2 or 3 days and not try to sell anything. When you walk into a client's office, don't have a rate card or a media kit in your briefcase. No, don't even have a briefcase. I want you to go in with a notepad. And then you're going to sit down, and your objective is to find out what's new in their business, find out what they're trying to accomplish, find out any problems they have that we can solve, and that's it. And of course, relieved of the pressure to sell anything, the salesperson could ask questions, really listen, and take notes. And then they come back to the office. We debrief the call together, and then we brainstorm some ideas. They take some fresh ideas out in the next 2 or 3 days. And within a week or so, they were out of their slump. I want you to hold that thought. Today, as I read the new sales books and sales blogs, the word intention keeps popping up, as in your intention in sales is more critical than your sales techniques or sales approach. Intention means what one intends to do or bring about. Intend means to have in mind as a purpose or goal. So what do you have in mind when you meet with a client or prospect? What's your mindset? What's your intention? Remember when I told the story about helping salespeople get out of a slump by telling them not to try to sell anything for 2 or 3 days? I could have written a book about that, but I didn't. Diane Helbig thought about it, and she wrote Success Without Selling. Look at the subtitle. The more you think about selling, the less you will sell. She writes, of course you need to sell, that's a given, but that doesn't have to be your sole focus. As a matter of fact, you shouldn't make it your main focus at all. The more you think about selling, the less you'll sell. Your mindset should be one of discovery and problem solving. Embrace the idea that when you have something that someone else needs and you have built trust with them, they will buy from you. It takes patience and faith. Faith that when your mindset is on building relationships, being helpful, and living in integrity, the customers will arrive. And those relationships will continue for the long term. Don't confuse patience and faith with waiting. You must take action and work a process. She continues, the ABCs of selling have changed. In 1992, the movie Glengarry Glen Ross hit the theaters. It became an iconic depiction of the sales industry. Always be closing became a mantra. Salespeople were trained to always be thinking about the sale. They looked at everyone they met as a prospect. Enter the elevator pitch. The idea behind the elevator pitch was that a salesperson should be able to spark interest in a total stranger in the time it takes to ride an elevator with them. And you could use your elevator pitch at a sporting event, at a barber shop, in line at a grocery store. Today, the ABCs of selling are always be curious. When you lead with a premise that the more you think about selling, the less you'll sell, you can see that choosing curiosity over convincing is the way to go. When you're curious, you're thinking about someone else. You aren't concerned with yourself or your mortgage. Whenever you're actively listening, you will become more attentive, interested, and engaged. The beauty is that other people will now want to be around you. When you're curious, you are building relationships. Curiosity means you aren't jumping to conclusions, you aren't making assumptions, and you aren't trying to make someone a client or a customer just because you need one. Diane Helbig and I both believe that selling should be enjoyable, and she says, what is more enjoyable than learning something new or making a new acquaintance? Sales becomes enjoyable when you stop selling. I had most of this figured out in the 70s. I told my slumping salespeople, don't try to sell anything for the next 2 or 3 days. Go find out what your customers are trying to accomplish and help them get there. Always be curious. It's a lot easier on you and your customers than always be closing. Talk soon.